The assignment that ended my career as an SCP field agent was my expedition into SCP-3008, otherwise known as the Infinite IKEA. Driving to SCP-3008, Mr. Spittle briefed me.
Your assignment is to enter SCP-3008, find Agent Ophelius, and report back to us.
Agent Ophelius, the only colleague I liked, had been assigned to go in and retrieve some lost shoppers, but he himself had become lost. There was only one question on my mind: how will I find my way out?
We had already developed an exit locator for Agent Ophelius. You'll be equipped with one.
Spittle handed me the compass-like device.
To help you find your way out. Well, sure. I mean, it worked for Agent Ophelius, right?
I joked.
We don't think the exit locator was the problem. Ophelius just stopped reporting to us without warning, suggesting he might have gotten into some kind of trouble.
Trouble?
As you know, the staff become hostile at night.
That's right. I'd read the field reports. The IKEA staff would shuffle around placidly during the day, but at night, they'd attack anyone on sight. Worse, they were attracted to the bodies of their fallen colleagues, so killing them only attracted more of them.
But Ophelius went silent during the day,
Spittle continued,
suggesting the staff weren't the cause. According to earlier reports, there are a few townships inside SCP-3008. They might know something. It's likely Ophelius made contact with them at some point.
That was in the report too. The shoppers lost inside SCP-3008 seemed to have grouped together, built barricades, and armed themselves with IKEA products to fend off the staff throughout the night. Surviving on food from the IKEA restaurants, they had carved out quite an existence there.
Here we are,
said Spittle. Our van had reached the checkpoint in the perimeter of SCP-3008. A wire fence had been established around the plot of land on which the store had been built. Hazard signs and warnings of toxic mold were intermittently stuck along the fence to keep people out, and agents wearing hazmat suits patrolled its length. Our van was pointed towards the gate, where the doc showed his clearance paperwork. Security waved us through, and we drove into the large and vacant car park of SCP-3008. There it was, a vast warehouse unit made of corrugated steel painted in primary blue, and with the name IKEA in giant yellow letters.
Contact the townships. Find someone who's seen Ophelius, then report to us,
said Spittle.
We'll be in your ear.
Spittle then shoved something so deep into my ear canal that it tickled my brain.
Ouch!
He pushed me out the door of the van, saying,
Good luck, Agent Atlas.
I knew he didn't mean it. How many had he sent into SCP-3008 before Ophelius? Was I just another in a long line of lost agents? I walked slowly up to the store entrance. The Foundation's security personnel wouldn't look me in the face. The store's doors automatically opened, inviting me inside. I stepped in. Inside, the only surprising thing was how unsurprising the place was. It was entirely normal. The bedrooms department into which I'd entered was stocked with the expected Nordic-named products: Yativalmo, Hovig, Malm. The background music was dimly playing, and there were even a few staff ahead. But when I reached them, the normalcy quickly evaporated. The staff wore the usual blue pants and yellow shirts of IKEA, and busied themselves by pushing trolleys or climbing stepladders to reach boxes. But they were somehow wrong. As I got closer, I saw their bodies were out of proportion, legs too short and arms too long. They waddled in an inhuman way. Coming into their midst, I could see each creature's head was misshapen and lacked facial features. Their hands were as big as shovels. Thankfully, they seemed unaware of me. Once at a safe distance from the staff, in the dining department, I stacked a couple of display tables atop one another and climbed onto them so I could look out across the store. In each direction, an endless repetition of home furnishing departments extended into the distance. To the west, though, just a few departments away, some kind of construction of various furniture could be seen jutting up amongst the shelves and displays. As I was straining my eyes to study it, a hand clasped around my ankle. It pulled me crashing down off the table. I was pinned on my back, looking up at the 3 shoppers who held me down. They each wore a headband made from a ratchet strap, with Allen wrenches slotted inside it, like feathers in their caps.
Doesn't look like a dining man,
said one, pointing a sharpened curtain pole at my face. He had 3 Allen wrenches in his headband. I noticed the others had just 2 Allen wrenches in theirs.
Check his teeth,
said another with a hammer in his hand. I felt fingertips digging under my lips to pull and stretch my lips around as they inspected my teeth.
Not a cannibal. Who are you?
Asked the third one, holding a garden shovel over me.
My name's Atlas,
I told them.
I came in here to find my colleague.
Maybe you've seen him? They looked at one another and began laughing.
Right, you're a new arrival. You'll have to come with us,
said the one with the curtain pole. With 3 Allen wrenches in his headband, he seemed to be the highest rank.
Don't worry, we'll get you to safety. But there's a process now. Always follow the instructions,
laughed the one with the shovel. And who are you? I asked their leader, as he gently brought me to my feet and dusted me down.
They call me Bottle Rack. I'm the leader of the scouts.
He saluted me. Then Bottle Rack gestured to his men, and they wound my wrists in packing tape.
Where are you taking me?
I asked.
We're taking you to the only place you'd want to be, the Flatpack Fortress.
Bottle Rack smiled.
There, you'll stand before the king and he'll decide your fate. But don't worry, it's only custom. Just tell him what you told us.
What if he doesn't like what I say? I asked. Bottle Rack laughed.
He's no tyrant. You'll be free to leave if you like.
The scouts walked me to where they'd parked their wheelie trolleys, which we boarded. They propelled the trolleys like large skateboards, expertly cornering around the aisles and skidding over the tiles of the display kitchens, until we reached the Flatpack Fortress. Interlocking tables, chairs, desks, and bookcases, stacked and slotted together, formed the outer walls of the fortress. Atop the walls stood guards who wielded lawnmower blades like scimitars. Bottle Rack whistled and made a gesture with his fingers. At this, the walls folded back, admitting us through a narrow passage of pine and oak veneer. Coming into the courtyard, I saw a crowd of citizens had gathered around a man that stood atop a coffee table, wearing a tall lampshade atop his head. He chanted,
"Oh, IKEA, keep us steady and balanced with a piece of folded cardboard under our shortest leg. Let us not hide our instruction pamphlets by sitting on them. And may the original packaging remain with us until the warranty expires."
He bowed his head in prayer, and the crowd followed. He began the prayer.
"IKEA, who art around us, hallowed be thy name. Thy pamphlets come, instructions done, in bedrooms as it is in bathrooms. Give us this day our wheelie trolley, and give us our Allen wrenches, as we give Allen wrenches to those who join us. And lead us not into exchanges, but deliver us from returns. Amen."
The crowd echoed, "Amen," then slowly dispersed, returning to their business within the fortress walls. These people bore a peculiar array of injuries, arms in slings, missing limbs, and many paraplegics using rolling office chairs as improvised wheelchairs. I turned to ask Battle Rack, but he preempted my curiosity, saying,
"It's the staff. At night, they become deranged and attack anyone they see. You've seen them. Big arms, big hands."
"But why so many paraplegics?" I asked.
"Well, they don't just attack. They try to bold people. They try to flat pack us, bend and twist our limbs, and stuff us in boxes, or store us on the shelves."
Battle Rack's eyes went distance, as if recalling some horrors.
"They treat us like furniture, basically. So, a lot of broken spines here. But within the Flatpack Fortress, we're safe."
Bottle Rack and his scouts brought me up a winding staircase made of deck chairs to a mezzanine platform of thatched bed slats, the King's Court. We sat before a large marquee made of curtains and waited until a scribe emerged and declared,
"Ladies and gentlemen, please stand for the Lord of the Flatpack Kingdom, His Highness, The Meatball King!
To applause, the king emerged from behind the curtains. A pot-bellied man with spectacles, wearing a crown with countless Allen wrenches protruding from it, and a cape of silk bedsheets flowing off his narrow shoulders. He held the pole of a tall standing floor lamp as a staff. His counselor approached him, bowed, then spoke.
The glimmer of tiles on the eastern horizon suggests bathrooms and kitchens abound there, my lord. Accordingly, I'm expecting a heavy incidence of garden and outdoors as we head north. Make room in the armories so we're not muddled as we loot,
said the king.
And let's keep our eyes peeled that the returns desk doesn't creep up on us again, so help us God.
The king's counselor replied,
Very well, my lord. And now your advisors from Trends, Scouting, and Inventory are here to report on the day. Trends, report!
Shouted the king. The Trends advisor stepped forth, bowed, then spoke.
Bad news, my lord. Surveying of the living room department suggests that shabby chic is still going strong this season. So help us God. And what news from Scouting?
Bottle Rack stepped up, bowing.
Westwards, the traps we left at the restaurant remain untouched, and no other sign of survivors that way. I'm suggesting we divert our patrols elsewhere in the meantime. Make it so,
said the king.
My lord, we did find one survivor in dining,
said Bottle Rack.
He appears to be a new arrival. Very well. We'll give him his hearing after. Inventory? Our Tupperware is full, my lord,
said the inventory advisor, bowing.
And our ice packs are replenished in the cool bags. All is well.
The king smiled.
Finally, some good news. Well then, I suppose we should hear from our new arrival. Come forth.
A hand on my back pushed me forwards. I thought it smart to bow as I stumbled towards the king.
Surviving alone outside the fortress walls?
Said the king.
How did you manage that? I've just got here,
I told him.
Earlier today. I came looking for my colleague. He entered the store 2 weeks back. I'm hoping he's somewhere here, in your kingdom.
The king turned to Bottle Rack.
And you're confident his story checks out? He's a newbie,
said Bottle Rack.
I'd bet my life on it. Very well,
announced the king.
Release the man, and show him our ways.
The king approached me and spoke under his breath.
Apologies for the rough treatment. Even after uniting the towns, we still occasionally find enemies within the store. We've lost many citizens to bandits, saboteurs, and cannibals. I have a responsibility to my people, you see.
I see, I said, as my hands were snipped free by a clerk with scissors.
Only IKEA knows the variety of enemies hiding in the aisles, so we must take precautions.
The king clicked a ratchet strap around my head and slotted an Allen wrench into it.
I will grant you safety within the Flatpack Fortress, in return for your menial cooperation with our customs. It would be nice if you could lend a hand. There's plenty of work to do.
I asked,
what work needs doing? Each morning, when the lights come on, we disassemble the fortress and move it along to be reassembled in a neighboring department. It's a big effort, but a necessary one. Why?
I asked.
It keeps us on the move from the staff,
said the king.
And eventually, we hope to reach an exit.
I knew then that the king's efforts were futile. They were moving far too slowly to pin down the fast-moving exits. But I also knew better than to say anything. I held my tongue.
I'll see what I can do, I said. Everything is still so new. Don't feel obliged. You're free to search for your colleague outside the fortress walls if you wish. But be aware, the gate closes at 9 p.m. No exceptions.
A shirtless, muscular man stepped into the court, held up a large cake tin, and bashed it with the spanner, declaring,
1 hour until store closing. Seal the gates, man the walls. How's that for timing?
Laughs the king.
You don't mind spending the night with us, I hope?
Not at all, I said, then remembered to add,
my lord.
Later, Bottle Rack showed me to the guest quarters, which consisted of a memory foam mattress inside a white cotton teepee adorned with fairy lights. I must admit, it was cozier than my bedroom back home. I sank into the mattress and pressed on my earpiece to contact Mission Control. I gave them my report.
Glad to hear you've settled in nicely, Agent Atlas,
said Spittle sarcastically.
If the townships have united into one kingdom, that makes your job easier. So hurry up and get it done.
What a jerk. Sure thing, I said.
You should ingratiate yourself with the king and make some connections. That's the best bet of finding someone who's seen Agent Ophelius.
Agreed, I said. I'll make myself useful tomorrow and see if I can generate any leads on Ophelius.
But one thing, Agent Atlas. Don't get too absorbed in their culture. Remember your mission,
warned Spittle.
Find Ophelius, don't get distracted, and don't waste time.
I stretched out on my bed and thought that I could quite enjoy wasting some time here. That night, I slept well. Better, in fact, than I usually do. In the morning, I ventured outside to find the citizens had already been disassembling the fortress, loading it up onto trolleys, and carting it over to the next department. Everyone moved with such purpose and focus that I didn't know where I should step in. As I dawdled up and down the makeshift streets, I saw the priest I'd seen the day before. The lampshade he wore on his head stuck up amidst the busy crowds. He was making his way towards me.
You can't spell future without furniture,
he beamed at me, closing the distance and putting his hand on my shoulder. That's backwards, I thought. It should be, you can't spell furniture without future. But everything was a bit backwards here. I guess being backwards suited this place.
Have you heard the good news, brother?
He asked, holding up a pamphlet entitled IKEA Company Values, then putting it into my hands.
IKEA is here to give us meaning, brother. IKEA is not your enemy. Love IKEA!
It sounded like Stockholm Syndrome to me. He continued.
IKEA provides. IKEA guides. Have faith in IKEA.
He turned his head to beam at another citizen, then approached them.
Have you heard the good news, brother?
I looked at the pamphlet, which listed the company values, togetherness, responsibility, and a few others. In the margins, the priest had annotated the pamphlet's text with various spiritual interpretations relating these 8 values to the divinity of the Flat-Pack Kingdom. Someone snatched the pamphlet out of my hand. I looked up to see a guard smiling.
Forget this rubbish,
he said, tossing the pamphlet over his shoulder.
You're the newbie, right? If you want to get involved here, come and join us in the Guards Tavern.
Tavern? I asked.
It's early morning. Not for the guards. We've just clocked off.
I noticed he had 2 Allen wrenches in his headband. He offered his hand.
Name's Shaggy Rug,
he said.
But you can call me Shaggy.
When I shook his hand, he gripped mine tight and started dragging me away towards a collection of bar stools around a row of kitchen islands. The Guards Tavern. The booze there smelled awfully strong. Fermented from the fruit of the restaurant, apparently. The guards welcomed me, and Shaggy ordered me a drink. No money was exchanged. It seemed the number of Allen wrenches worn by each citizen entitled them to tiered benefits. When we sat down, the guards were sharing war stories. I noticed they customarily gave product descriptions whenever they mentioned using an item from the store. I heard lines like,
I took my Andle cook's knife, $9.99 from Kitchens, and stuck it through the creature's face. The only thing between us and certain death was the sturdy paneling of Hemnes, $194.49 from bookcases. I jumped down into the darkness with nothing but my Fixa clawhammer, $8.49 from tools and fittings in my hand.
If a guard ever forgot to mention such information, the others would shout,
"Ah!"
and point at the guard until they necked their drink. I turned to Shaggy Rug and asked him how it is defending the fortress.
It's easier than it used to be,
he laughed.
Most of us here were guards for the various townships before we all united under the king. Things were harder then.
How so? I inquired.
You once had the Kitchenites, for example. That was my town. We formed our fort from the heavy quartz slabs of Oxton, $442 per square meter from worktops, and this gave us unrivaled protection from the staff. Week after week, those creatures assaulted us with no success.
So why don't we do that here? I asked.
Because the bodies amassed against the quartz, or became trapped between the heavy slabs, and we couldn't clear them quickly enough. The dead bodies attracted more staff, which amassed more bodies, which attracted more staff. It was a runaway chain reaction. By staying in the same place, we became a target. Eventually, the attacking parties grew so large that they overran us.
Shaggy gulped his drink and lowered his head.
The Kitchenites fell. We couldn't move our town, so we fell.
That's why all this then, I said, gesturing to the citizens deconstructing the flat-pack fortress around us.
Yep, but mobility alone is not enough. Take, for example, the outdoorsies, who led a nomadic existence. To the outdoorsies!
Yelled a guard, before finishing his drink and promptly passing out. Shaggy continued.
The outdoorsies quickly moved across the store, broken into smaller tribes, scouting for areas vacant of staff, and setting up camps there with no real defense. They relied on a few able-bodied scouts to patrol for staff and sound alarms so the camps could flee before being found.
So what went wrong for the outdoorsies? I asked.
Over time, their scouts were picked off quicker than they could be replaced, leaving the outdoorsies without any protection whatsoever. They fell too, around the same time as my people did.
So the king united the survivors? I asked.
Yep, it was his smart idea. Combine the security of the Kitchenites with the mobility of the outdoorsies. A fortification that disassembles and reassembles itself each day, in true IKEA spirit. Though his priest tends to take the spiritual stuff a bit far. If he'd served on the walls, he wouldn't think IKEA is so benevolent.
Shaggy ordered another round, even though I'd only finished half my drink. It was lethally strong. He continued.
The flat-pack fortress became the safest place to be, so the other townships joined us. The dining men, the bog dwellers, the electrics crew, everyone. The priest, bless him, did a good job of persuading them. Guess he has his uses.
Smart, really, I said. Disassembling after daybreak to flee the dead staff, then reassembling before nightfall to endure the living staff. It's been effective for you so far?
We're still all here, aren't we?
He called to his fellow guards, who cheered.
Not a single fatality inside the flat-pack fortress since its birth. I'd say that's effective, wouldn't you?
Yes, I said.
So you'll be joining us for the next night watch then?
Asked Shaggy. The guards all leaned in towards me with their drunken smiles, anticipating my response. Spittle whispered in my ear.
Don't even think about it.
I could give it a try, I said. They raised their glasses and cheered. Shaggy climbed onto the bar and declared,
A new guard joins the ranks.
Everyone started banging on the bar and chanting. Someone put a glass in my hand.
Drink, drink, drink.
I downed the glass in one, then blacked out.
Wakey, wakey, newbie.
A guard was looking down at me. I was in my bed.
You've slept enough. Time for your initiation.
Before I could orientate myself, I was hoisted up on my armpits and marched out of my quarters. I saw the fortress had been reassembled into the neighboring department already, and I can only assume I'd been carried like so many cabinets, bed frames, and sofas had been.
Agent Atlas,
Said Spittle in my ear.
what's going on? We've been trying to reach you all day.
Before I could answer, someone pulled a pillowcase over my head, and I was walked around in circles while the guards whistled and made animal noises. I muttered, "Bit busy right now," as they marched me up some steps. Then we stopped, and everyone went silent.
Newbie!
I recognized Shaggy's voice.
Now the time has come to choose your spirit product. Step forth and lay your hands upon your destiny.
I stepped forth, reached out, and felt around on the table until my hand came upon a cold plastic stick. I grasped it. The guards erupted into laughter. Someone walked up behind me and whipped the pillowcase off my head. I looked down and saw from a table adorned with various home furnishings, my hand had found the toilet brush. The guards heckled.
Congratulations, toilet brush. A fitting choice. We love you, TB.
Shaggy walked up to me holding up an Allen wrench, which he slotted into my headband alongside the first one. The guards cheered.
You are now a guard.
Said Shaggy, with a tear in his eye. It made me well up, too. The Foundation never made me feel this amount of belonging, this level of camaraderie. It was welcome. In my ear, Spittle shouted,
What's going on, Agent Atlas? Report now.
I'm now a guard.
I declared, addressing both Shaggy and Spittle.
What in the hell do you think you're doing?
Ranted the doc,
Stay on task.
Let's show you to your post.
said Shaggy.
You'll be with me tonight, Toilet Brush.
Okay, I said again to them both. We arrived at our wall section, some 50 meters long, composed mostly of tabletops, bookcases, and office desks, with step ladders intermittently propped against it on the inside.
Here,
Said Shaggy, offering me a heavy oak table leg.
swing it like a club. One good whack to the head should do it. You can't spell future without furniture.
As I grasped the table leg, the store's lights went out. A soulless voice echoed out of the speakers.
The store is now closed. Please make your way to the nearest exit.
Along the fortress walls, networks of hanging garden lighting blinked into dim illumination. In their light, I saw something wedged deep inside the wall. A dead body, yellow and blue, a staff member.
Shaggy!
I shouted, pointing down towards the corpse. His eyes followed my index finger, then bulged open when he saw the body. He roared.
Get that body out of here now!
I ran with the other guards to where the body was. We grabbed the dead creature by its oversized wrists and pulled, but it was jammed. Someone had staked it into the wall and tangled it up there with extension cords. This was no mistake,
It's built into the wall, damn it! Engineers!
Shaggy called, and the engineers came running up with their tool belts and screwdrivers in hand.
Staff body in the wall, get it out!
The engineers began dismantling the furniture to get to the body. Shaggy called for the spotlights, and they beamed out from the flat-pack fortress to scan over the surrounding departments. Blue and yellow bodies were stumbling towards us, attracted by the smell of the body on the wall. You could hear them muttering in unison in the distance.
Store is now closed. Please make your way to the nearest exit.
Stop!
Shaggy called.
Too late! Leave the body! Seal up the wall!
The engineers reversed their efforts and started returning the wooden panels, poles, and planks to reassemble the gap in the wall. Shaggy directed all us guards into formation around the breach. As an engineer was screwing the last tabletop back into place, an enormous hand burst through the gap and grabbed him by the neck. The fingers wrapped all the way around his neck and touched at the other side. It twisted and snapped his spine at the brainstem. The engineer's arms dropped limp. Then the tabletop was forced aside as two more of the staff barged in.
Breach! Breach!
Yelled Shaggy.
Breach!
Altogether, the guards marched forth to face the creatures invading the breach. I went with them. Spittle shouted in my ear.
Agent Atlas, it sounds like carnage there. Get back to safety now. You have a mission to complete, and this is not it.
The staff lurched through the breach, uttering, "The store is now closed. Please make your way to the nearest exit," as they reached for the guards with their long arms. The guards slashed at them with their sharpened homewares and managed to hold the creatures back until one got hold of a guard by the arm. It pulled him in closer, then passed him to another creature. Between them, they laid the guard down on the floor and began to bend his limbs in on himself until they snapped and dislocated. Another creature leaned over and stuck a screwdriver into the guard's ribs and started twisting it clockwise, as if tightening something. He screamed. When they folded his spine with a crunch, he stopped screaming. The other guards were already rushing in and spearing the creatures with curtain poles, kitchen knives, and garden forks.
Agent Atlas, this is not your mission. Get to safety now.
Shouted Spittle in my ear. I leaped forth and began clubbing the creatures with my Voxlova table leg, $189.59 from dining, until they were all dead and lay in a heap on top of our fallen comrade. Then I felt something squeezing around my waist, and I looked down to see enormous fingers wrapping around my midsection before I was picked up off the floor. More hands grabbed hold of my arms and legs, and I was pulled out of the breach to outside the fortress walls. They pinned me to the floor. Their faceless and misshapen heads leaned over me, and they began twisting my arms and legs. I dropped my club. My knee popped out. My arm cracked. I closed my eyes tight and braced for my death. "The store is now closed. Please make your way to the nearest exit." Then I heard a thud, thud, thud. I opened my eyes.
Shaggy stood there, panting, holding my club. "Toilet brush, can you walk?" "I can hop," I said. Shaggy held me back towards the breach when a creature lurched out from the shadows of a display bedroom. Shaggy shoved me through the breach to safety and turned to face the creature. It grabbed at him. He struck it over the head with my club so hard that the club snapped. As the engineers began pulling me inside, I saw the dead creature topple on top of Shaggy, pinning him to the ground. A horde of creatures came from the shadows, stumbling towards Shaggy. I shrugged off the engineers and got to my feet.
Agent Atlas, direct order. Retreat now, or we're terminating you. Agent Atlas? Agent Atlas!
"My name is Toilet Brush!" I yelled, running back out through the breach.
He's gone native. Agent compromised. Terminate.
Spittle was shouting in my ear so loud that I ripped out my earpiece, causing blood to spurt out along my shoulder. I threw the earpiece towards the oncoming creatures to draw their attention away from Shaggy. As it reached them, something crazy happened. The earpiece exploded into a huge blast that sent them all flying backwards. Spittle, that jerk, I thought. But that jerk just accidentally saved our lives. His bomb bought me a moment to grab Shaggy, pick him up, and drag him back through the breach. With the creatures blasted back, the engineers had time to close the breach, and the guards could hold off the remaining assault. Shaggy and I were stretchered to the tavern and anesthetized with vodka. Days later, once healed, I was invited back to the king's court. As I was called forth, the entire court took to their knee, and the king slotted a third Allen wrench into my headband.
"For your courage, I grant you nobility within the Flatpack Fortress. Now, what will you do next?"
he asked.
"Pursue your search for your colleague, or stay here with us?"
"I'm not sure yet," I said, "but I do know one thing for certain. You can't spell future without furniture." I'm speaking to you from inside SCP-3008, also known as the Infinite IKEA. I've entered this endless homeware store as an SCP agent, assigned to find my missing colleague, Agent Ophelius, who'd become lost in the infinite bathrooms, bedrooms, and kitchens departments. However, as per my previous account, I soon found a better life here, in the Meatball Kingdom, than I ever had on the outside. Just know that inside SCP-3008, I found that the lost shoppers here had, over decades, formed a civilization to survive inside the Infinite IKEA, the Flatpack Fortress, safe from the monstrous IKEA staff who attack each night. The staff wore the usual blue pants and yellow shirts of IKEA, and during the day were placid. They busied themselves by pushing trolleys or climbing stepladders to reach boxes, but they were somehow wrong. Their bodies were out of proportion, legs too short and arms too long. They waddled in an inhuman way. Each creature's head was misshapen and lacked facial features. Their hands were as big as shovels. If you met one during the day, they'd use those hands to bend and fold and snap your body in an effort to flat pack you like any other item of IKEA furniture. Worse, if you killed one, the corpse would attract more of their colleagues. But the terrors of the staff were countered by the camaraderie of the shoppers, by uniting under the Meatball King and erecting the Flatpack Fortress. Assembled from various home furnishings and furniture, stacked and slotted together, the lost shoppers had carved out quite an existence and built a civilization safe from the staff. As crazy as it was, I felt more community and belonging here than I ever did working for the SCP Institute on the outside. So, after meeting a man called Shaggy Rugg, leader of the guards, I decided to reject my mission of finding Agent Ophelius. Instead, I found purpose serving with Shaggy on the walls of the Flatpack Fortress. Although this cost me my connection with the SCP Institute, they cut me off and tried to kill me. So it's safe to say that my career as an SCP agent came to an end. However, while defending a breach in the wall, I earned my new title, Toilet Brush. I became an honored guard. Thanks to the actions of Shaggy and myself, the walls held. But we had to be stretchered away from the battle. Days later, once healed, I was invited back to the king's court. As I was called forth,
"Step forth, Toilet Brush!"
the entire court took to their knees, and the king slotted a third Allen wrench into my headband, alongside the other two.
Each Allen wrench indicated a level of status within the Meatball Kingdom. I had just earned the highest privileges.
For your courage, I grant you nobility within the Flatpack Fortress.
Now, what will you do next?
Asked the Meatball King.
Pursue your search for your missing colleague, or stay here with us. I'm not sure yet, I said, but I do know one thing for certain. You can't spell future without furniture. This popular cultural mantra got a cheer from the king's court, but inside me, I knew what I would do next. Not because I had any remaining allegiance to the SCP Institute, but because I had some unanswered questions. I wanted to complete my original mission of finding Agent Ophelius, though I no longer had any intention of returning to the outside world with my findings. The breach in the wall, which nearly cost my life, was no accident. Someone had placed a corpse of one of the IKEA staff inside the wall where I was posted. The corpse attracted more staff to my posting, causing the breach. It was blatant sabotage. If someone was trying to kill agents like myself, who were sent inside SCP-3008 to rescue people, perhaps they'd tried killing Agent Ophelius too. That would explain his absence. Or maybe he's chilling on a deck chair somewhere, eating Swedish meatballs and watching the battle from afar. Either way, I had to find out. Ophelius was my only lead. On our last day of rest, before returning to our posting as guards on the Flatpack Fortress's walls, Shaggy Rug and I were sitting in the tavern, a collection of kitchen islands where fermented fruit from the cafeteria was used to serve various types of potent booze to the guards, presented in IKEA's finest glassware. Shaggy turned to me and asked, Will you return to the walls with me, Toilet Brush? Shaggy, while lying in the medic tent all this time, I've only had one thing on my mind, I said. The corpse? The corpse. Who put that there in the wall, right under us? It was no accident, you saw it. It was wedged right in there, hooked like bait. I agree. But what can we do? We have no leads. Someone tried to kill me, Shaggy, I said. We have to do something, or maybe next time they'll be successful. Why don't you just leave? He asked. Go back to safety. I produced my exit locator, a small compass-like object which the SCP Institute had given me so that I could find my way back out of this place. I held it up to him. It's broken, I said. It got broke during the Battle of the Breach. Without it, it could take me years to find an exit. Shaggy said nothing, but took the exit locator into his hands and began turning it over and over. The same thing that Standing Mirror used to carry with him, said Shaggy. What? Standing Mirror? I asked. Who's that? He joined us after we found him living alone outside the fortress, like you. He had one of these, but never told us what it was. Maybe he can help you find your missing colleague. I immediately asked Shaggy for a description of Standing Mirror's appearance. Shaggy, I said, I think Standing Mirror is my missing colleague. What happened to him? Damn, really? Well, true to nature, he went missing. Never showed up to his posting on the wall. Haven't seen him since. Shaggy, don't you see? Ophelius was sent here on a rescue mission, then mysteriously vanished. I was sent here on a rescue mission, then someone tried to get rid of me. Something fishy is going on here. You think someone wants to keep you and your colleagues out of the Meatball Kingdom? That would make sense, but now we're just guessing. We need to investigate. Where was Ophelius last seen? Shaggy laughed. You're talking about 20 reassemblies back. The Flatpack Fortress was disassembled, moved along, and reassembled each day to keep it moving away from the corpses of the staff who died attacking the fortress's walls each night. But we've kind of gone around in a loop, he continued. So you'll just need to scout over maybe 50 departments to the west. I'm not sure though. Best to check with the scouts. Will you come with me? I asked. It could be dangerous. I have a job here, he said. Plus, outside the fortress walls, the scouts are your best bet at survival. They'll take care of you. You've already met Bottle Rack, the leader of the scouts, right? Yes, I said. Bottle Rack had found me when I first arrived in SCP-3008. He was the one who tied my wrists together and brought me before the king. We've met. Well, they'll take care of you. And to be double sure, I want to give you this. Shaggy held out a Stanley knife,
then used his thumb to protrude, then retract the blade.
This is handy if you get caught in close quarters. It was my mentor's before he passed it down to me. And now, I'm passing it down to you. So you'll remember your time with the guards. How could I ever forget?
I said. Later that day, I tried to track down Bottle Rack, walking all over the flat-pack fortress. Interlocking tables, chairs, desks, and bookcases, stacked and slotted together, formed the outer walls of the fortress. Atop the walls stood guards who wielded lawnmower blades like scimitars. Inside the walls, little buildings were constructed from sofas and bedsheets, and I came to a courtyard where a crowd of citizens had gathered around a man stood atop a coffee table, wearing a tall lampshade atop his head. Slotted into the lampshade were dozens of Allen wrenches. The crowd bowed their heads as the bishop declared,
IKEA, who art around us, hallowed be thy name. Thy pamphlets come, instructions done, in bedrooms as it is in bathrooms. Give us this day our wheelie trolley, and give us our Allen wrenches, as we give Allen wrenches to those who join us, and lead us not into exchanges, but deliver us from returns. Amen.
The crowd echoed,
Amen.
then slowly dispersed, returning to their business within the fortress walls. These people bore a peculiar array of injuries, arms in slings, missing limbs, and many paraplegics, using rolling office chairs as improvised wheelchairs. I'd learned that there were so many injuries because the IKEA staff don't just attack. They try to fold people. They try to flat pack you, bend and twist your limbs, and stuff you in boxes or store you on the shelves. I passed the crowd and proceeded up a winding staircase made of deck chairs to a mezzanine platform of thatched bed slats, the King's Court. I could find Bottle Rack, the scout leader, here. When I arrived, the king had just finished addressing the senior members of his court and was walking back into his large marquee made of living room curtains. He was a pot-bellied man with spectacles, wearing a crown with countless Allen wrenches protruding from it, and a cape of silk bedsheets flowing off his narrow shoulders. He held the pole of a tall standing floor lamp as a staff and used it to aid his walking back into his marquee. At that moment, the bishop with the lampshade hat, full of Allen wrenches, ascended the desk chair staircase and stood in the center of the court. He raised a hand up to the sky.
From the fluorescent hanging aisle lighting to the deliciously salty meatballs of the cafeteria, IKEA provides. IKEA guides. Have faith in IKEA, and lo, we ask of IKEA, keep us steady and balanced with a piece of folded cardboard under our shortest leg. Let us not hide our instruction pamphlets by sitting on them, and may the original packaging remain with us until the warranty expires.
He lowered his hand, then gestured his deacons to take around the donation pot, which was a champagne bucket from Kitchens.
Please support your community to pay the due respect and worship to our great IKEA. All proceeds are going to the Church of Infinite Warranty.
Stood watching the bishop with a skeptical eye was Bottle Rack. As the bishop departed the court to descend back down the staircase, Bottle Rack relaxed his shoulders and turned away. He saw me.
Toilet brush,
He called.
I heard about your actions on the wall with Shaggy Rugg, but I didn't have a chance to congratulate you on your third Allen wrench yet. Well done. But I have to get some credit, right? For recruiting you into the Meatball Kingdom.
He too had 3 Allen wrenches in his headband, though his scouts, who presently came running up to perch next to him in a huddle, all had only 2 Allen wrenches.
What can I do for you?
He asked.
I feel like I owe you one after the rough treatment we gave you.
I explained to him about my desire to track down the missing agent Ophelius, known in the Meatball Kingdom as Standing Mirror, in an effort to uncover more information about the plot to kill me.
Standing Mirror? Yes, I remember him. We lost him 18 reassemblies back, a few departments west from here. There was no search party issued by the King's Court, so we didn't investigate. But I remember the location of the site. I'd guessed he just decided to leave us.
I think it was something more than that, I said. Ophelius came here before me, then went missing without explanation. When I came, someone tried to get rid of me.
If we can find Ophelius, maybe we can find some answers about what's going on.
Bottle Rack turned to look at his scouts, then back at me.
Well,
He said,
we're heading west today on our patrol. We could stretch out our route a bit and bypass the site where we lost Ophelius. You might find something there.
"Great," I said.
Let's go.
The scouts walked me to where they'd parked their wheelie trolleys, which we boarded. They propelled the trolleys like large skateboards, expertly cornering around the shelves and skidding over the tiles of the display bathrooms as we headed westwards through model bedrooms and garden furniture displays.
Here we are.
Said Bottle Rack, pointing to a large clearing where previously the flat pack fortress had been assembled. I took the binoculars from around his neck, ran over to a dining table display, climbed atop it, and looked out around the site. Everything seemed normal until my eyes caught a cardboard box stacked atop a shelf. Its bottom half was stained red. As we lowered the box down from atop the shelf, it hit the floor with a wet thud. I used Shaggy's Stanley knife to slit open the box, and a hot waft of foul air knocked us all back. Inside the box, wrapped in cellophane and folded up into a position so unnatural that it necessitated the breaking and dislocating of most of his bones, Agent Ophelius's body lay there, crumpled and rotting. I pinched my nose and slid open the cellophane that mummified him. The smell intensified. Inspecting his corpse, I saw Agent Ophelius was still wearing the same clothes and in possession of the same items that the SCP report said he'd entered this world with, all except one thing. One thing was missing, his exit locator. The thin chain which hung the exit locator around his neck was snapped. Had it been taken by force?
Why would the staff steal your colleague's exit locator?
Asked Bottle Rack, as his crew searched for it under tables and behind cabinets.
I don't think this was the staff,
Said a scout, approaching us.
Didn't you see the body?
Asked Bottle Rack.
Yes,
Replied the scout.
but look at this.
He held out a blood-stained cutout section of the cardboard box that was used to store Ophelius. All over it, red fingerprints were stamped. Bottle Rack inspected it.
The fingers that packed this box were too small to be from one of the staff,
He said.
These are human fingerprints. Yes, sir,
Said the scout.
We've collected samples as evidence, but no sign of the exit locator. I'll keep this one then.
Said Bottle Rack, folding the cardboard evidence into his satchel. The scout turned to me and said,
Why would someone...
A garden fork speared through his chest. Someone grabbed me from behind and slammed me down on the floor. Bottle Rack yelped and fell next to me. I heard a loud thud against my skull, and everything went black. When I woke up, I couldn't move my arms or legs. At first, I thought I was paralyzed, but then when I opened my eyes, I saw that I'd been wrapped in cellophane, with my arms stuck to my sides. Next to me on the floor was Bottle Rack and his scouts, all also cocooned in cellophane.
I told you not to use your weapons, you fool,
Said a voice from behind me.
It needs to look genuine. Now he's got 4 fork holes through his damned chest.
I couldn't see the speaker and couldn't turn to see them, but facing me, Bottle Rack looked over my shoulder to the speaker. Then he looked back to me.
It's the Church of Infinite Warranty,
He whispered. Then I saw Bottle Rack quickly close his eyes and pretend to be unconscious as a deacon of the church walked past. A hammer was swinging from his tool belt. I checked myself to find that my weapon, a Voxlova table leg, $189.59 from dining, was missing. We'd all been disarmed, but with my hands stuck to my thighs, inside my cellophane cocoon, I could feel that inside of my pocket was the Stanley knife which Shaggy Rugg had gifted me. The voice behind me continued.
The bishop said to do it like we did with Standing Mirror. Break their necks and fold them up so it looks like the doing of the staff. No weapons, I told you.
Checking myself further, I noticed that my exit locator had been taken from around my neck. The store's speakers whined into tune.
The store will close in 5 minutes. Please make your way to the nearest exit.
Bottle Rack's eyes opened in panic. 5 minutes until lights out. The voice behind me said,
Time to do this.
Then I saw them come around into view to push a trolley carrying a fridge into our midst. They opened the fridge door, and a dead staff member dropped out onto the floor. Its giant arm flopped out to land across my chest, and I could feel the pressure of its weight on my lungs. The speakers whined.
The store is now closed. Please make your way to the nearest exit.
The lights went out, plunging us into blindness. In the distance, I could hear shuffling. Was it the staff coming for their fallen colleague?
Let's get out of here,
said the bishop, before boarding the trolley and having the deacons push it from behind. They fled down the aisle back towards the flat-pack fortress. The shuffling in the shadows grew louder. Then I saw the silhouettes of the staff approaching down the aisle. They murmured in unison.
The store is now closed. Please make your way to the nearest exit.
I scrambled in my pocket for Shaggy's Stanley knife, but the cellophane was too tight. I had to flex my fingers with all my strength to move them just a bit, but at my fingertips, I could feel the handle of the knife. The staff stepped closer as my eyes adjusted to the darkness. I could see them. They lurched forwards with dumb smiles and arms outstretched towards us, murmuring,
The store is now closed. Please make your way to the nearest exit.
I managed to wiggle my index finger like a caterpillar until it was over the knife handle. Then one of the staff grabbed a scout by the leg and picked him up as he strained inside his cellophane cocoon. The staff deliberated in taking hold of each of the scout's limbs, then began to slowly, methodically, fold him in on himself. He screamed. His arms dislocated, his legs snapped inwards at the knees, and his spine was crunched as they flat-packed him. He stopped screaming. Using their knees to pin him down for stability, they compressed him into a cube, then slotted him onto a shelf, alongside some chrome toasters and kettles. Then they grabbed me, as they picked me up and handed me around, inspecting how they could fold me up best. I managed to pinch my fingertips over the Stanley knife just enough to protrude the blade. It popped through the cellophane. As the staff laid me down and pinned me to the floor with their knees, I slid up through the cellophane and burst free from the plastic cocoon. They swiped at me, but only came away with a big floppy mess of cellophane, looking at it confusedly and turning it over in their hands like some giant shed skin. I ran towards Bottle Rack and the other scouts, needing to slit open their cocoons too, but the staff stepped in my way. As I tried to sidestep them left, then right, then left again, I saw more staff coming from behind and began snapping the scouts' necks, one by one. It was too late for them. I ran. Coming to the fortress, I saw a poster pinned to the wall, which showed a crudely drawn profile of my face with the word "Wanted" printed across it. In the poster, I'd been described as a treasonous saboteur who intended to destroy the flat-pack fortress. As my eyes scanned up along the wall towards the gate, I saw these posters stuck intermittently, every few meters along the wall. Seems like I'm not welcome, I thought, then retreated back to hide amongst the display bedrooms so I could further scan the walls. Crouching and sneaking through the various departments, I searched for signs of Shaggy Rugg. Hiding amidst a bathroom's department, I saw him. He stood atop the wall with his back to me, addressing his guards. I needed his attention, so I grabbed a toilet roll from the toilet roll holder and pelted it at him. It bounced off the back of his head and he spun around. I waved up at him. He froze, turned back to his guards and called,
Enemy sighted, move out.
Then they dismantled a hole in the wall and began to pour out into the bathroom's department. As I fled laterally along to the next department, I hid inside a wardrobe in bedrooms and waited as I listened to the guards marching past. After they passed, I crept out. A hand slapped on my shoulder.
You owe me,
said Shaggy Rugg. I turned to see him smiling down at me.
I've opened a hole in the wall for you, and the guards are fanning out away from it. We have to move quickly to get you inside. Let's go.
I didn't hesitate, and we both turned and ran for the wall, staying low and stepping quietly.
I'm not a saboteur,
I said.
Of course not,
said Shaggy.
It makes no sense, but I have to keep up appearances. So once you're in, you're on your own.
Thank you, I said. As we passed more wanted posters, Shaggy said,
You've really pissed someone off.
It's the bishop, I said.
He's the one who killed Ophelius and tried to kill me. He wants the exit locators. The bishop? Screw that guy. I never liked him. I might need your help to expose him, I said. If it's his word against mine, I lose every time. Well, I don't know what I can do.
I've got an idea, I said, as we sneaked through the wall. As everyone except the guards slept, I made my way quietly through the flat-pack fortress to the courtyard where one could find the church. It was a grand spire of metal, made of TV stands, garden tables, and tent poles, all entangled with chic lighting fixtures, standing lamps, hanging ceiling lighting, fairy lights that towered up above the height of the fortress walls. Creeping inside, I made my way to the back where the bishop slept. But as I entered his room and inched closer to his bed, I saw he was not there. The door slammed shut. I turned around. The bishop stood there, pointing his scepter at me. It was his standing lamp pole with the light bulb removed and the wiring exposed so that it crackled like a taser. He'd been waiting behind the door, where he'd plunged his weapon into an outlet and waited for me.
You'll find the church has eyes all over the fortress,
he said, stepping towards me with his crackling electric scepter.
Nobody can enter into or move within this place without my knowing it. And your friend Shaggy Rug will pay for his treason, rest assured.
I was no threat to you. Why are you doing this?
I asked.
No threat? You come here to steal from my flock, and then you say you're no threat?
I'm stealing no one. I only came here for Ophelius, but you killed him.
Yes, he was another wolf, and the shepherd must protect his flock.
He didn't come to kidnap anyone. He only offered them a way out if they took it.
And the church cannot abide such a wicked temptation. I won't let you destroy our community.
You could leave too. Wouldn't you be happier in the outside world?
I'm a goddamned arts major. Do you know the career prospects and social status available to an arts major in the outside world? Here, I'm the closest thing to a god.
So that's what this is all about,
said the king, standing in the doorway, alongside Shaggy Rug.
There's no threat to our citizens, only a threat to your hold on power. Shame on you, Steve.
The bishop turned and leapt at the king, stabbing his electric scepter into his chest. The king stumbled back, but then regained his footing, grabbing the scepter, and stared into the bishop's eyes.
Nice try,
said Shaggy, dangling the unplugged power cord from his hand. He yanked it, pulling the scepter from the bishop's grasp.
But you've just lost your power.
Shaggy's guards rushed into the room and apprehended the bishop, who thrashed against them. The king stepped up to him and took pleasure in plucking the many Allen wrenches from the bishop's lampshade hat.
I'll let you live, but you'll no longer be welcome in the Meatball Kingdom,
he said.
Get rid of him.
But it's the middle of the night,
said the bishop.
This is a death sentence. Release me tomorrow. This is murder.
The king took in a deep breath, then turned to me.
What do you think, Toilet Brush?
IKEA provides. IKEA guides. Isn't that what you always said?
I asked the bishop.
Let's let IKEA decide his fate. I'll be killed. You know it.
Sounds like you're lacking in faith,
said Shaggy Rug, then gestured to his men to escort the bishop away.
Take Steve to the gate and let him go to be with his great IKEA.
As the guards left, it was just me, Shaggy, and the king remaining in the bishop's quarters. The king walked over to the bishop's bed, reached under the pillow, and withdrew both of the exit locators.
I believe these should belong to you,
he said, handing them to me. One lay dead in my hand, but the other one, Ophelius's one, beeped slowly with the pulse of a nearby exit. SCP-3008 is a Euclid anomaly. It is otherwise known as the Infinite IKEA. Entering said location results in being unable to leave or having little to no chances of getting out. The anomalies in 3008 are the employees. These creatures have no face and can vary from being incredibly tall to super short. Their arms are incredibly long or super short. They are seen sporting the classic yellow with blue stripes uniform, varying in skin tone. During the day, these SCPs are categorized as passive/safe. However, at nightfall, they are hostile. Some things they have been heard saying are, "Excuse me, but the store is now closed. Please exit the building," along with, "The store is now closed." These do not contain much variation to what they say. The SCP-3008 employees are incredibly difficult to kill. If one is killed, this will alert other SCP-3008 employees to the area. If one is killed, it is highly recommended to bring the carcass to a location further from where there is life. There are bases scattered inside of 3008, ranging from very well-built ones to people just trying to survive. How people keep entering isn't fully known at this time. It has been rumored that 3008 is a door between realities. However, there is no known evidence that has been solidified. SCP-3008 has a replenishing food supply, which seems to restock once weekly. This is not understood why. However, it does prevent death by starvation in most cases. Bathrooms may be an issue within this location. It is likely that they gain their aggressive nature from night, as they are able to move at higher speeds during night than day, and are hostile. The third and final story which I have to share with you about my time inside the infinite IKEA began immediately after my last account. Shaggy Rugg, the Meatball King, and I stood in the Church of Infinite Warranty, where we just confronted and overcame the nefarious bishop before exiling him outside the Flatpack Fortress. The bishop had killed my predecessor, Agent Ophelius, and tried to kill me, so he could hoard the exit locators which Ophelius and I had brought into this place. The exit locators offered the lost shoppers a chance to return home. Now the king of the Meatball Kingdom placed the retrieved exit locators in my hands, one broken and one, which beeped rhythmically, still working.
Toilet brush,
He said to me.
does that mean what I think? That an exit is nearby?
I asked.
Yes, that's right. Quite a rarity, but this confirms it.
The king looked to Shaggy Rugg, leader of the guards, and they nodded at each other. The king sighed, then said to me,
Excuse the timing, Toilet Brush, but we must ask you to take advantage of this rare opportunity. You want me to leave?
I said.
No way! This place is my home now.
The king looked down at the floor. Shaggy stepped in and said,
We just need you to take a quick expedition to the outside world, TB.
The king chimed in.
There's some things which we are lacking here. Things we need. What do you mean?
I asked.
You have everything here. What more could you possibly need?
The king solemnly looked at Shaggy. Shaggy said to the king,
Okay, let's show him.
Then the king and Shaggy walked me out of the Church of Infinite Warranty. It was early morning, before the store's lights had come on, and the kingdom's guards still patrolled the fortress walls, eyeing the surrounding departments, living rooms, bathrooms, kitchens, and so on. For sight of the monstrous IKEA staff who had no doubt found the bishop by now and folded him up in flat-pack fashion so they could store his compacted corpse on the shelves. But now Shaggy and the king walked me through the flat-pack fortress. Interlocking tables, chairs, desks, and bookcases, stacked and slotted together, formed the outer walls of the fortress. Atop the walls stood guards who wielded lawnmower blades like scimitars. Inside its walls, table linens and bedsheets formed the homes of the citizens of the Meatball Kingdom. They walked me to a modest hut of chic bedsheets. This is where the king stopped us. As he opened the door for me, the king spoke.
We're very proud of the civilization we've created here, but there are some things which we fail to provide our people, namely, modern medicine.
As we entered, I saw a boy of about 16 lying unconscious on a bed, with a man leaning over him, dabbing the boy's sweating forehead with a cloth.
What's wrong with him?
I tentatively asked. The man crouched over the body and turned to me, saying,
This young man, his name is Armrest, and he's recently developed type 1 diabetes.
Then he offered me his hand, adding,
I'm Dr. Draining Board, but most people call me DDB.
The king put his hand on my shoulder.
This boy needs insulin, as much as you can get. A 6-month supply would be prudent. About 60 pens should do it, until we work out his exact required dosage.
Armrest groaned and shifted onto his side, causing the beads of sweat that had accumulated on his forehead to slide off onto his pillow, which was already soaked. Dr. Draining Board rushed over to the bedside. I turned to the king.
I'll do it,
I said.
Please be quick,
said Dr. Draining Board.
We might have 6 hours if we're lucky. The boy won't last much longer in this state.
The exit locator was still beeping in my hand. I looked at it. It showed the exit was just a short dash away, a couple of departments over.
Better get moving before we lose this exit,
I said.
It could disappear any second.
Wait!
Cried a voice from behind the curtain as a boy fell through it. He tumbled out from behind the curtain and onto the floor amidst us.
I'm coming with you,
he cried. The boy had the exact same appearance as Armrest, except healthier.
Armrest's brother,
chimed the king.
His name is Footstool, and he should be in bed. I'm coming too. I want to see it,
cried Footstool.
And I want to help Armrest. This is not the time,
said the king to Footstool.
You've never been outside before. Toilet Brush spent his whole life outside. He knows how to handle it. So he'd be the perfect person to accompany me while I get the medicine for Armrest,
cried Footstool.
Let me go, please.
At that moment, Footstool's mother burst through the curtain.
Footstool, what did I tell you about sneaking off? Come now, you'd only get in the way.
I felt bad for the kid. He just wanted to help his brother.
Don't worry, kid,
I said to him.
I'll bring that medicine back for your brother. You can come on the next expedition. This one is a bit too rushed.
Footstool sulked in that characteristically teenage way. His mom put her arm around his shoulders and walked him back through the curtain. Armrest coughed and sputtered on the bed.
Better get going,
I said. The doctor nodded and handed me a notepad made from blank IKEA receipts stapled together. On the pages, he'd scrawled a few notes in the bad handwriting that's typical of doctors.
This explains what you'll need to acquire,
he said, then turned back to tending to Armrest. The boy whined. I snatched the notes from the doctor's hand and ran out the door. Following the exit locator brought me to a normal-looking IKEA exit. The big automatic doors which I'd passed when I entered this place. It was weird. I'd not seen them since I'd first entered, months back. As I approached them now, they opened before me. I took one last look back at my new home world, then I ran outside. Stumbling out onto the pavement, I noticed 2 SCP guards posted either side of the door, a few meters out from the building, looking outwards towards the perimeter fence that had been erected to keep the public out. They had their backs to me. As I slowly backed away from them, to stay out of their peripheral vision, I bumped into something behind me. When I turned around, I saw Footstool standing behind me. He'd followed me out.
What are you doing, kid?
I said, as the automatic doors closed behind him, and I saw through their glass that the department inside the doors changed from bedrooms to kitchens to gardens as the exit relocated itself inside the store. There was no going back for him now. He stood there, trembling, looking up at the sky with a gaping mouth and eyes stretched open in fear. He'd never seen the sky before. Slung over his shoulder was a backpack stuffed with various items from the IKEA shelves. Things he thought might be useful. Some cordage from the camping section, a couple of solar-powered lamps, 2 Tupperware containers of meatballs, and, inexplicably, poking out the top of his rucksack, the handle of a large frying pan.
You think you're going to be frying eggs out here, boy?
I joked.
You never know what's going to come in handy,
he said, with his eyes still stuck to the sky.
Kid,
I said, snapping my fingers in front of his face.
We gotta focus. Get the insulin for your brother. You can cloud watch later. Right,
he said, snapping to attention. Though I could tell he was still a little distracted by the novelty of being outside the store for the first time in his life. His eyes kept darting upwards to the sky, or out to the horizon.
Focus, kid. See those guards? We gotta get past them. Now, the town center is that way. That's where we'll find a pharmacy to get the insulin. If I recall correctly, there's...
Before I could finish, Footstool sprinted at the leftmost guard, reached his hand back behind his head to grasp his frying pan's handle, then in one swift motion withdrew it and clattered the guard over the head with a resounding twang. I guess the frying pan was useful. The rightmost guard jumped at the sound and spun around to glare at Footstool and me, not noticing that his comrade had been taken out already. He saw me before the store entrance, equipped with IKEA homewares, wearing a toga made from the linens of the bedrooms department, wielding a table leg as a club. He cried to his fallen partner,
Johnson, it's finally happening, I told you!
Then he turned to Johnson, and saw him unconscious, with Footstool standing over him wielding the frying pan.
Screw this!
He yelled, dropping his sidearm and running away.
It's happening!
We took the opportunity to run the other way, to the perimeter fence, then wait for the patrol to pass, before we cut a hole in it and fled out, away from the infinite IKEA into the town center. It was high noon, and the passers-by in the streets didn't pay us much notice. Some smirked or made little comments. They seemed to assume we were going to a fancy dress party or something. Footstool's eyes couldn't stop darting around, unaccustomed to being in an open space. Cars or motorbikes would send him flinching back in fear, as if someone had shot a bullet past him. Once I lost him only to trace back my steps and find him frozen, staring at a pigeon as if he'd seen an angel.
What is that?
He said in awe.
It moves through the air.
"Cool," replied the bird, with perceived divinity. Footstool bowed his head to it.
Focus, kid. We have a job to do,
I said, pulling his arm. He snapped back to attention and resumed our mission with redoubled vigor.
Sorry, yes, let's go,
he said. First stop was a second-hand clothes store, where we grabbed some mismatched outfits off the rack. We were limited to what we could afford with the few dollars I had managed to keep in my wallet throughout my whole time inside the infinite IKEA. I took a shirt and pants that were both too small when I put them on. Footstool emerged from the changing room, dressed like a 90s rapper, with a loud silk shirt patterned with colorful koi carp, baggy jeans, and a pair of garish, pink, oversized designer sunglasses.
Okay, I'm ready to blend in,
he said.
Do you really need those sunglasses?
I asked.
You said the same thing about the frying pan, remember? You never know what's gonna come in handy.
When we find a pharmacy, you wait here. I know how to deal with these people. They might get suspicious if they see you.
As I entered the pharmacy and the bell on the door jingled, I suddenly felt a wave of social anxiety. I hadn't interacted with a normal member of the public in months. Without the Allen wrenches in my headband to broadcast my rank, I felt naked. The clerk sensed my unease and knitted his brow together in a look of wariness as I approached his counter.
Yes,
he said.
How can I help you?
Insulin,
I blurted. He put his palms down on the counter and leaned back, craning his head to look for his colleague or, perhaps, manager.
Insulin,
he replied.
We have quite a range of insulin here. What exactly are you after?
I stuck my hand into my tight pants pocket and dug around for Dr. Draining Board's note. Taking it out, I read,
63 milliliter pens, please. 60?
said the clerk.
You going away somewhere?
Yep, going traveling,
I said.
Okay,
he said, turning to his computer and frantically clicking the mouse.
Just let me check our system to see what we have in stock for you.
As I stood there trying to look normal, in my skin-tight shirt and pants, clutching an IKEA receipt and hoping to pass it off as a doctor's prescription, I began to sweat. Was he calling his manager? Calling the cops? What was taking him so long? Then, as he continued clicking away on his computer, hunched over the screen, I saw a movement behind him. Up on the shelf, sliding along like a cat burglar, was young Footstool, dressed in his eccentric and baggy attire. He turned his head back around to look at me, wearing his enormous pink sunglasses and, hanging from the shelving with one hand, put his other hand to his face and put a finger over his lips as if to say, shh. At that moment, his sunglasses fell off his nose and clattered to the floor behind the pharmacy counter, behind the clerk, who began to turn.
Ah!
I shouted. The clerk snapped back around to me, just before he could see Footstool. He gave me a questioning look.
Choo!
I added, faking a sneeze. He wasn't convinced.
Can I see that prescription?
He asked, pointing to the crumpled IKEA receipt in my hand. Behind him, I saw Footstool, looking into drawers until he found the insulin, then started stuffing the many large pockets of his oversized outfits with as many insulin pens as he could carry.
This prescription here?
I asked, trying to retain the clerk's attention.
Yup,
he said, and stared at me, extending his open palm.
Can you speak French?
I asked him, clutching at straws for something to say.
French? Why?
My doctor is French. Maybe you won't understand this, I said,
trying to stuff DDB's note back into my tight pants, futilely.
Are you French?
He asked.
Oui,
I replied. watching Footstool pocket the last pen, then turned to give me the thumbs up. He began climbing back along the shelves looking like a very pimped-up rock climber. The clerk proceeded with his interrogation.
Where are you going that you can't get insulin? Must be somewhere quite exotic? France,
I said, stupidly. I wasn't thinking. I was too distracted by the sight of Footstool stopping to pillage some additional drawers of pharmacological loot. What was he playing at?
You can't get insulin in France?
Asked the clerk.
I'm going climbing in the mountains,
I said.
I'll be very cut off. Better safe than sorry, eh?
At that moment, Footstool caught his shirt tail on the corner of a drawer and came tumbling off the shelves, pulling crates and boxes of medicine down on top of himself with an almighty crash. The clerk spun around and immediately yelled for security, but Footstool and I were already sprinting out of the store, down the street, and into the first alleyway we saw. Hiding behind a bin, we checked our haul. Just shy of 60 insulin pens, 3 large boxes of prescription-strength sleeping pills, and a rectal suppository for hemorrhoids.
Do you really need all this?
I asked him.
You never know what's going to come in handy,
he said, crossing his arms. I checked my watch.
The clock is ticking,
I said.
We've taken too long already.
At that moment, a pigeon, perhaps the one from earlier, cooed at us from the end of the alleyway. As it took flight, a pizza delivery guy pulled up on his motorbike to take its place. The pizza guy checked his watch, grunted in frustration, then jumped off his bike and rushed to a nearby door, leaving his keys in the ignition. Was this divine providence? It made me think. Perhaps that pigeon was some kind of angel, as the kid had thought.
Let's go,
I said, and we ran down the alley, hopped on the pizza delivery bike, and sped off down the street, towards Infinite IKEA. As Footstool's koi carp shirt flapped in the wind, he clutched his hands over all his pockets to retain the stolen medicine. I could hear him stifling his screams each time we turned a corner. He'd never seen a motor vehicle before today, much less experienced being transported by one at high speeds. As we drove into sight of the perimeter fence around the Infinite IKEA, I saw a supply truck being checked in at the gate.
Hold on tight,
I yelled, then pulled the throttle so that we came roaring up alongside the truck just as it was passing through the opened gate. We overtook it and sped across the parking lot to the sounds of security shouting into the radios. Behind me, I heard shots fired and footsteps yelping in fear. Looking back, I saw a couple of patrol jeeps chasing us down, firing warning shots overhead and demanding from their loudspeakers,
"Stop now, or we will shoot!"
I went full throttle. Ahead, the store's entrance doors were closed and wouldn't open in time before we hit them.
Get your head down, kid,
I yelled, then ducked behind the handlebars and squeezed the brakes to lessen the impact as we skidded through the glass. The bike jolted over and sent us both flying through the air, spinning like frisbees, to land side by side in a memory foam, queen-sized bed, positioned as if to perfectly deliver us from harm.
IKEA provides,
Gasped Footstool, who lay there with eyes widened in disbelief of what had just happened. Then the large automatic doors closed together and blinked out of existence. The exit locator stopped beeping. The passage of the outside was gone, for now. I stood the bike upright and called Footstool over.
She's still working, come on.
Then we sped through homewares and furniture, spying out the flat-pack fortress which rose above the surrounding departments.
How are we doing for time?
Asked Footstool.
We've been gone over 6 hours,
I said.
but we're so close now. We'll be home in minutes.
And then, as if I had jinxed it, we drove straight into a trap of bed sheets which fell over us from above to tangle and ensnare us. Our wheels slowed to a halt, completely entangled in silk and cotton, and we fell off the bike. Wrapped up in the sheets, I couldn't see a thing, but I heard footsteps rushing in around us, and then I felt hands grab me.
Footstool, run!
I shouted as I felt myself being dragged away. Then I heard one of my captors grunt,
Good night.
and he cracked me over the head. Everything went black. When they unwrapped me, I was tossed onto the floor and looked up to see none other than the bishop. How much time had passed? Where was Footstool? Were we too late to save Armrest?
Hoped you'd seen the last of me?
The bishop said with a smile, still wearing his tall lampshade hat.
Well, fortunately there are those here who remain uncorrupted and loyal to the church.
He gestured to his band of fanatics, who all wore lampshades in his style, though cropped shorter by being crudely cut and crumpled in. His was the tallest.
We heard your bike coming and spotted you rushing here, and I thought I couldn't miss the chance to have a catch-up with you and offer you a chance to witness our second coming.
What are you talking about?
I asked, getting to my feet and marching towards him. Two of his fanatics stepped forth and crossed their garden forks to form a barrier between the bishop and me.
Second coming?
That's right. We're going to seize the power of the fortress and put the word of the church back in its rightful place. But first, we drink,
he said, waving in the porters, who brought 2 large jugs of spirit alcohol.
Spirits to raise the spirits for battle,
he cried. They all passed around the booze, taking a gulp, and started equipping their improvised armor and weapons. But strangely, as they donned their chopping board breastplates and took up their arms of Scandinavian cutlery, they all began to clumsily stumble and fall over, and eventually snore. The bishop crashed to the floor, smashing the jug so the alcohol and glass splashed across the floor in front of me, wherein I saw some half-dissolved pills fizzing away. Then Footstool threw off his lampshade hat and revealed himself.
You never know what's gonna come in handy,
he called, holding up the empty boxes of sleeping pills. He blew hard on a whistle. Then Shaggy Rugg and his guards came rushing in, pulling trolleys, and loading up the bishop and his followers to carry them back to the king's court. Footstool ran up to me and cut off my ties.
How about your brother?
I asked him.
He's okay now, thanks to you,
said Footstool.
I ran straight home after you were taken. Sorry, I hope you don't mind. I was always going to come back for you. No,
I said.
You did the right thing.
Then I heard the purring of the pizza delivery motorbike come up behind me and turned to see the king himself screeching to a halt, jumping off, popping open the trunk, and holding up a stack of pizzas. He inspected the labels.
Margarita, anyone?
And that meal marked the end of the turbulence in the Meatball Kingdom, after which we enjoyed continuous days of unmarred happiness and peace, until we didn't. But that's a story for another time. SCP-3008 is a large retail unit previously owned by and branded as IKEA, a popular furniture retail chain. A person entering SCP-3008 through the main entrance and then passing out of sight of the doors will find themselves translocated to SCP-3008-1. This displacement will typically go unnoticed as no change will occur from the perspective of the victim. They will generally not become aware until they try to return to the entrance. SCP-3008-1 is a space resembling the inside of an IKEA furniture store, extending far beyond the limits of what could physically be contained within the dimensions of the retail unit. Current measurements indicate an area of at least 10 square kilometers with no visible external terminators detected in any direction. Inconclusive results from the use of laser rangefinders has led to the speculation that the space may be infinite. SCP-3008-1 is inhabited by an unknown number of civilians trapped within prior to containment. Gathered data suggests they have formed a rudimentary civilization within SCP-3008-1, including the construction of settlements and fortifications for the purpose of defending against SCP-3008-2. SCP-3008-2 are humanoid entities that exist within SCP-3008-1. While superficially resembling humans, they possess exaggerated and inconsistent bodily proportions, often described as being too short or too tall. They possess no facial features, and in all observed cases, wear a yellow shirt and blue trousers, consistent with the IKEA employee uniform. SCP-3008-1 has a rudimentary day-night cycle, determined by the overhead lighting within the space, activating and deactivating at times consistent with the opening and closing times of the original retail store. During the night, instances of SCP-3008-2 will become violent towards all other life forms within SCP-3008-1. During these bouts of violence, they have been heard to vocalize phrases in English that are typically variations of, "The store is now closed. Please exit the building." Once day begins, SCP-3008-2 instances immediately become passive and begin moving throughout SCP-3008-1 seemingly at random. They are unresponsive to questioning or other verbal cues in this state, though will react violently if attacked. SCP-3008-1 is known to have one or more exits located within, though these exits do not appear to have a fixed position, making it difficult to leave SCP-3008-1 once inside. Using any other door besides the main entrance to enter the structure or breaking through the walls of the retail unit leads into the non-anomalous interior of the original store. Since containment began, 14 individuals have managed to exit SCP-3008. Following extensive debriefing, all individuals have been administered amnestics and released. Hey guys, thanks for listening. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast for more SCP stories like this one. You can also check out some more episodes from the SCP Experience podcast here. I'll see you in the next one.